Mike, thanks for that, and y'all, thanks for letting me join y'all here. It's great to be here, and it's great to be back in Texas. Although we're during shutdown. I wish we were back up there, being able to do our job and get stuff done and have hearings and work with the president on a regular basis. But Democrats are blocking us right now. But I was in D.C. yesterday and the day before because I flew up to be there at the White House for the presentation of the Medal of Freedom for Charlie Kirk. Focused a lot on Charlie when I go out and talk over the last month. It touched all of us. It touched all of us a lot. And I'll rattle through a little bit of stuff going on in Congress, and I'll touch a little bit in a minute on my return to Texas and running for Attorney General. But I do want to pause for a minute about the importance of Charlie. And it's not just for the obvious reasons. And I think knowing the people in this room, I know you're going to agree with me on this. Great fighter for the Constitution and limited government and freedom. The shirt that he was wearing on the day that he was killed. All of that stuff is true, and it cannot be overstated. But the primary thing that he did was carry the cross and be willing to express those views unapologetically and fearlessly in a place where it needed to be done more than any other place, in our college campuses and in the belly of the beast, directly to the people that are not wanting us to do it. Right? Too many of us, too many people that we know them. Too many of our pastors, too many of the people in the legislature and in Congress walk around on eggshells and don't want to proclaim the gospel and don't want to talk about faith. Ooh, we don't talk about that. And Charlie showed that if you do that, you move people, right? We saw the Spirit moving. And I think this is fundamental to everything we're doing right now in our election sequence and what we're doing right now with the president. What we saw in Arizona from the president, from Don Jr., from Marco, from all of the people who spoke, JD, like literally proclaiming the gospel to hundreds of millions of people around the globe. That was the thing that is transforming people, right? I said something on an interview the other day on Newsmax. The phrase that came out of my mouth, and I might mess it up again, but people liked it, was something in the zip code of, Charlie didn't give these young people purpose. He showed them what purpose is. He was just a guy, we're just people. We're all gonna be, we're gonna come and go, and we're gonna go meet our maker. But showing people what purpose is so critical for leaders in this country. And that's why it was important that the president honored Charlie in the Rose Garden on Tuesday. And it was why I flew up there to be there. Also to see my staff yesterday, who I hadn't seen in 2.5 weeks because we've been in shutdown. But and I do want to introduce Sabrina Hancock, who's my chief of staff right here, who makes her office rooms. But look, here I'm going to cut through stuff because we only have limited time. But I wanted to focus on Charlie, and let me say one more thing about Charlie because it's relevant. The last substantive conversation, I'm going to get into the stuff that I think is most important, and then some of the things in Congress. The last substantive conversation I had with Charlie was about the march of the Islamists and Sharia law. I'm telling you all now, beyond border, which was my number one issue, it's related. But beyond border, beyond, the things that we're dealing with in fighting for schools and Plower Veto, which is connected to the border, and all of the stuff that we need to do with respect to criminals on our streets, Soros DAs, election integrity, all things that I'm working on, and I'll talk about more in a minute. Leaping way above that for me right now is the march of the Islamists and Sharia law, not just in Dearborn, Michigan, not just in Minneapolis, not just now with the possibility of a Marxist Islamist being elected mayor of the financial capital of the world, the very good likelihood that that's going to happen. Not just London, not just Paris, but Texas, and not just Epic City. That's the shiny object everybody's focusing on, and it's highlighting it. And it is an important thing, 400 acres and all the stuff. But it's more mosques being built in Texas than any other state in the union, right? This is a truth. There are something like 3,000 of them nationwide. There are 300 of them or so in Texas and growing. This is a real issue, right? I introduced legislation this week or last week to restrict the ability for people who are adherents to Sharia law to enter the United States or stay in the United States. They need to be removed. I co-sponsored a bill to basically state what I believe is true under the Constitution, that Sharia law is unconstitutional, unlawful, can't be applied. It's contrary to our values. It's contrary to Western civilization. It's contrary to the Constitution. It's contrary to the rule of law. We have to start saying this, and we have to start acknowledging it. And it's all tied back to border security and immigration. And let's just be very clear. God bless President Trump. God bless Tom Homan. God bless Kristi Noem. God bless Stephen Miller. God bless what they're doing, and all the men and women in ICE and Border Patrol for doing what they're doing to secure the border. It's now down to basically zero. But we're still holding the bag. We were talking about all the stuff, the jails. We're talking about the schools. Like, we've got to get rid of Plyler v. Doe. And if you don't know what that is, that was the Supreme Court decision in 1982 that says that we have to educate illegal children. Why does Texas have to do that? Because some Supreme Court 43 years ago made a ruling saying that we have to do that. That needs to be overturned just like Roe. These things are having implications for the people of Texas. And going back to the president real quick, what we've been able to do over the last year, and I want to address that issue on the border, has been extraordinary because we figured out how to come together to deliver wins. Now, I agree with Mike's assessment of the Texas Ledge. I think you handled that very well, I think, in terms of, all right, maybe not the best session, but maybe not the worst session, but could be better. We need to do more in the Texas Ledge. I agree. I'd say the same thing about Congress. I'd say the same thing about the big, beautiful bill. Mike mentioned all of the negotiations on the big, beautiful bill. Well, let's think about what we've been able to do this year. And let me try to humbly present that some of the stuff that we've been doing as fighters for Texas has affected that. When I went to Congress in 2019, one of the first bills I introduced was a bill to declare cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. I got massive pushback by my Texas colleagues, by people in the then administration, lawyers. You can't do that, Chip. Well, fast forward, what was one of the first executive orders by the president? Declaring cartels as terrorist organizations. It mattered that we laid that groundwork. One of the bills I introduced early was getting us out of the World Health Organization. That was I was the first member to do that 5 years ago. What was one of the president's first executive orders? Getting us out of the World Health Organization. UNRWA. I was the first to introduce a bill to defund UNRWA, which is funding money to the Palestinians and Hamas against Israel and undermining our national security. What was one of the first executive orders by the president? Defunding UNRWA. What about going down the laundry list of things that the president has done with respect to the border? A lot of those things were things that we were working on to build up so that the president had a platform. So let's go back to the speaker's fight. You remember when we had the big drama around the speaker? Well, why? It wasn't just for grins. I think my phone was blowing up by people across Texas, from activists to donors, saying, what are you doing? You're going to make Hakeem Jeffries the speaker. I said, no, I'm not. What we're going to do is force this speaker to empower conservatives so that you don't have, exactly what Mike said, is the same thing in Congress. Go play the leadership game. Go kiss the ring. Go do the fundraisers. Go take the weekend trips so you can be committee chairman one day. Or you could be like me and say, I don't need your chairmanship. All I need is a vote, a voter card on the floor of the House, and to go fight for the 750,000 people that I represent. And if I do that, then the people are with us. The speaker's fight was that. We got 3 conservatives on the Rules Committee. We got members on the Appropriations Committee. We changed the structure. We developed a plan called the Texas Border Plan that was a no amnesty, no future flow, border security only, solve the problem plan. And we forced the speaker to make that the first bill that we would bring up. And that's how we passed H.R. 2, which is the first time we've ever passed a security only bill. Those elements are very much informing much of what this administration is doing. It matters that you fight, and you fight along the way. It matters that you guys and everything that you're doing, the I don't know if you call that a creed or a motto or whatever, the statement of what it means to be a true Texan. Like, that matters. It matters that we stand up and fight on each one of those issues. And they build and they accrete so that when you get a leader like President Trump, or a leader like my friend Russ Vought, who is one of my best friends in the world and is now the director of the Office of Management and Budget, Russ is going through and whacking stuff now that we're shut down. Democrats shut us down. He's like, okay, I'm going to prioritize the spending. You wanted $18 billion for your transportation project in New York? Nah, bunch of DEI stuff, gone. You wanted $8 billion for some more Green New Scam subsidies? No, gone. Just yesterday, he just obliterated another $3 billion in RIFs. Is it as fast as I want? No. But the big beautiful bill is a good example. Is that what I would do if I were czar or king? No. But we have to manage 435 with a 2 or 3 seat majority, with a Senate that you got Democrats you got to get through. You got to use the reconciliation process and work with the president. So we set out last year, we put $150 billion in for defense. We put $150 billion in for the border. Literally a year ago, before the president was elected. Russ and I and a few others were conspiring on that. Now, why does that matter? Because fast forward, the border money is now what we're able to use because we did it that way. It's sitting in an account. Border Patrol is still funded. ICE is still funded during the shutdown because we knew the Democrats were going to shut down because they have no agenda. They have nothing to run on. So they got no bullets in their magazine. They're pulling the magazine out and they're throwing it. And that's what the shutdown looks like. So we wanted to be in front of that. So we passed the border money. We passed the defense money. So now there's money there that's sitting around for Russ to be able to use to pay the troops, which they just did yesterday, even though they're shut down. And that's giving us leverage to tell Hakeem and Chuck to go pound sand, and the president's able to do that. And then in the big, beautiful bill in the totality, people were kind of getting a little hot because I was going on and I was hitting the bill pretty hard in the Rules Committee. And I was leveraging the Rules Committee to try to force change. Now, why was I doing that? Was it because I didn't want to support the bill in the end? No. Did we have some intense negotiations with the president? Yes, we did. Mike Johnson likes to call it intense fellowship. And he's not wrong. There was some fairly intense fellowship. As the president likes to say, he goes, I don't want to have to make these 2 a.m. calls, guys. I'm like, well, Mr. President, I don't want Lisa Murkowski to be able to decide policy. And then we have this back and forth, but that's what we were doing. We were holding out to fight. So we used our position on the Rules Committee and the Budget Committee. I'm on the Budget Committee. And we voted down, you might have remembered, we voted down the big, beautiful bill. That created some more tense moments. But why did we do that? Because they had undermined and gutted everything the president had run on to get rid of the Green New Scam. So we fought it back in. So it went from, we wanted 800 or 900 billion gone. That was sort of the total pot. We got it, they took it down to like basically 100 billion. We said no. We fought it back to about 500 billion, and then we got that through. And that was the negotiated product. We got the Medicaid, the work requirements, the overall savings. We got Planned Parenthood defunded for a year, which is extraordinary. And look, I could go on and on. I would just say this. Just be very proud, as I know you are, of what this administration is accomplishing. Be very proud of Republicans in a 2 or 3 seat majority. For the first time, we were working very well together across the ideological spectrum with some very significant differences. There's some people in that delegation who do not believe what you all believe. They're Republicans that I have to work with. But we have found a way to do it. And we've done it because of the things we did ahead of time to manage to get there. Now, last thing I'll just say is this, and I'm here because I love this state, and I wanted to talk to you all and share my experiences in Washington and what's going on with the president and the state of things. I think the shutdown will probably end in about a week. I think the Democrats are starting to hit a wall. I think some deal will get cut to get the funding going through November 20th, and then there's going to be a debate about the expanded COVID subsidies, the Obamacare subsidies that were increased. I'm going to be fighting those. I'm going to be trying to figure out how to hold those back so we can have healthcare freedom. And we literally just had an hour-long conference call from Waco to Granbury in my drive, trying to work through the healthcare plans that we can try to come up with to beat back whatever they're going to try to do. This is nonstop and constant. But the bottom line is this. I am in my 4th term in Congress. And as 1/435th of 1/2 of 1/3, there's a limit to what I can do. I feel like I have squeezed every ounce of blood out of that turnip in my time up there. And I'm blessed that I'm on the Rules and Budget and Judiciary Committees. But I also have a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old son and daughter. And I've been gone for 7 years, and my wife's been carrying the load. And I don't want to wake up and go do one more term and my kids are in college. So I want to come home to Texas. That's reason 1. Reason 2 is I think God's put me in this position at this moment as someone who is a assistant United States attorney, who's been in a courtroom, who's put bad guys in jail, who was the first assistant attorney general, who's a lawyer, but someone who's had to go deliver and work to build coalitions at a time when we have got to save Texas, when we've got to stop the George Soros DAs, when we've got to stop criminals from being put on our street, where we've got to stop our open border, and never again should we be subject to a Democratic president leaving our borders open and exposed. Amen. Yes, we should declare an invasion. Yes, Texas should defend the border. Yes, it's our border too. And never again should we be exposed. And we need to deal with that now while we have a friendly administration. We need to protect ourselves in the future. We need to overturn Plyler v. Doe. and stop these illegals being in our schools. We need to battle Sharia law. We need to stop the spread of the Islamists. We need to make sure that we're defending Western civilization. We need to stand up for election integrity. I drafted and was the author of the SAVE Act, which we passed twice out of the House that the Democrats are blocking, which would guarantee only American citizens vote in American elections. We've got to continue that. We've got to expand on the work the legislature did on election integrity and giving the AG more power. We've got to empower the AG more to stop these Soros prosecutors, not just some of the work they've done, which is good, but more. There's no reason that the state AG can't have more original jurisdiction to go after these thugs that these DAs are putting on the street themselves, and then hold the DAs accountable. Of course we should. Cops shouldn't be getting shot in San Antonio and Austin because these DAs and judges are just saying, yeah, I'm going to listen to George Soros and the Wren Collective and all these leftist organizations. Texas is not as strong and secure as we like to think it is. Texas needs to be saved for our kids and our grandkids. I'm proud of the great friendships and leaderships that I have in this state, but we have got to recognize that there is a war against our way of life, a war against Western civilization. The Marxists and the Islamists want to take it away from us, and we're not going to let them. Because of you all, because of the faith that we have in God, because God has shown favor on our state when we have shown favor to God, and because I think of the spirit that is moving that we are seeing in the wake of Charlie's assassination, that is where this all begins and ends. So I start with Charlie and I'm going to end with Charlie, that our job is to carry the cross. There is no reason to live free if we're not moving more people to know Jesus Christ. That's our reason for being. That's why this state has been so blessed. And if I'm blessed to be Attorney General, I will fight like hell for you guys and do everything I can in the courtroom with law enforcement and against an overreaching federal government, should it ever happen again. By the way, even under President Trump, we still have lots of bureaucrats we haven't fired yet that we have to go fight. So there's a ton of things there that we've got to go address. So God bless you all. God bless Texas, and I'm happy to join Mike for some questions with the group. How do I do this?